Welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. We have the foremost real estate question on everyone's mind. 100 men versus one gorilla.
Who would win?
Who would win?
It's no contest. Men.
Is this like a viral thing going on right now? Because I saw
so.
it.
Yeah.
I briefly saw some Mr. Beast thing.
I think the statement is more like 10 men versus one gorilla. 100.
Well, it also depends on what kind of man. Like,
Sure.
if you're talking about, a bunch of 100 Wall Street men sitting back, it probably. But they're like we were talking about earlier. If they're UFC fighters, yeah, they could probably take it down. But there'd probably be a lot of men that just be like, "Oh, screw this." If you just took 100 men and they didn't know what they're doing and threw them in a cage with the gorilla,
and the fear
gorilla would
element,
probably jack them all up.
The fear element, yeah,
because they wouldn't be going like, "Oh, let's go
attack the legs,
gorilla.
attack the arms, attack the head, right, and go about it tactically."
So there would need to be some organization.
100%.
I think we need one lady telling 100
I
men
think
what
even
to do.
I think even 100 women would easily beat a gorilla. Again, if you have a plan, there's just too many numbers. Like, again, gorillas one-on-one would destroy any human easily. But again, when you take 2 men, 2 women on one arm, 2 men, 2 women on the other arm, and the neck and the back and the legs, right? You have to tactically attack.
Yeah, but a gorilla has a 1,300 pound biting power, so it would be like what's the question or the statement?
But if it can't breathe, it can't fight.
You have
right?
a plan
so
until
Everyone has a
gorilla
plan until they get
bites you in the face.
punched.
Yeah, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
And the guy has no face, and you're looking at that guy. You're like, "Oh, screw this! I'm getting out of here."
Yep.
I'm gonna
100%.
run.
You have to create diversion, get them to, right. Like I said, but the good news about a gorilla is it still has an airway, and if it can't breathe, it can't fight. Right. So again, you have to. I'm not saying it would be an easy thing. I'm saying if you tactically go about it, the gorilla does not stand a chance because you're just flat out outnumbered.
And the human doesn't have any weapons, right?
I have the
They got a
list.
brain.
Their hands.
Yeah, they have the greatest weapon. Their brain.
Here are the 100 men we need. We need Mike Tyson, Brock Lesnar, The Rock, 2012 Messi, 2017 Ronaldo, the morning routine guy, Mark Henry, Liz House
all
Speed,
right.
Jason Statham, 5 Manchester United fans,
Okay.
10 kickboxers, 10 zoo guards, 10 black belt taekwondo men, 20 men from the world's strongest, 10 death sentenced men, 15 sumo wrestlers, and 15 Real Madrid fans.
That they would definitely beat.
That's
beat
the
up
list.
gorilla.
That's who we need.
Well,
Those are the
and
100 men.
some of those sumos, pound for pound, are like close, right? Because a gorilla is
That
only
gorilla
like.
would still just knock him over.
Oh, it would. Like I said, the bone density of them is insane.
I just meant like on a one-on-one.
Oh,
Even as
crush 'em.
massive those men are.
Crush them.
They did in the Rude Awakening. That would be funny to watch.
Okay, so what is this all about? Like, why is this going viral?
why is
Yeah,
this-
that's where my brain was going. Is like as fun and fascinating as this. Like, who starts this crap?
I know.
Mr.
I
Beast,
know.
is that who?
And what does this have to do with real estate?
Nothing. That was the
Oh,
point.
okay.
Yeah, there was
Hey,
absolutely
we just brought a little entertainment to the
Point.
podcast.
The gorilla was looking for a house.
Yeah.
The gorilla is being rehomed.
Yeah. Tore down the house. You needed to demo a project. The gorilla made it happen real quick.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm still gonna go for the gorilla. I'd love to see him just shred up 100 people and go, just pound on his chest and victory.
Have you ever seen that video of the gorilla like pounding his chest?
Oh yeah.
That's scary looking, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
No
I've
way
seen them.
to
I've
do
seen them
that.
when they show their fangs and stuff like you're talking about. It is.
Yeah.
It's super scary.
That's when you said like women. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so.
I absolutely think so. With tactics. Sorry,
What's the tactic to get them to charge?
you're gonna have to create some type of like diversion, and then the other group, like again, you're gonna have to shrink the distance. The problem is
someone has to decide who's gonna sacrifice
yeah.
themselves. That's
Again,
all.
I think we are underestimating the human
Got it.
brain.
There's gonna be someone that's gonna be dead.
That is true.
Several
You
Several
probably
someones.
need draw straws.
Yeah.
Well,
Pretty
meanwhile, in the real estate world, Zoodealio came out with our first survey. It's the Real Estate Sentiment Survey, and we surveyed Americans and we asked them questions about how they feel about the real estate market today. And what we've learned is that home buying sentiment is pretty darn bleak. So when asked what best reflects your feelings about the current real estate market, 51% of Americans said that they believe prices are too high. 18% said that they don't trust the market right now and they're waiting for a crash. And 13% said mortgage rates are too high. Only 6% of those surveyed said that they feel confident about buying or selling. Let's chop up these results.
I'm surprised 13% only, or I think mortgage rates are too high. I think more people would think
Yeah,
that.
that's actually really surprising.
They're
Only
honing in on
13.
prices. 51% say prices are too high. But you want to hear something else that's very interesting. Kind of in the same vein, they think home prices are too high, but 64% think that prices will continue to rise. So there's this really like negative sentiment about the real
about the
estate market
market.
floating around.
You know, the funny thing is we all know just from the experience of being in the business as long as we have, is most people make their decision of what they're going to buy and the price point that they're going to shop in based on the monthly payment, which is absolutely driven by the interest rate. I mean, and price, clearly. But it's just funny how, I'm going to make the prices, but not the rate. Dude, if we drop the rates down to 4%, even at our prices right now, it's going to become much more affordable that quick.
So what do you think the interest rates are going to 1% this time?
Yeah, no, not happening. In fact, that pretty much. Well, the
but,
Fed
but,
meets
but did you
early
think
May.
it was going to ever happen to be like 2.75?
No.
I never thought that interest rates would be 2.75.
No, it was a historic low, right?
I
In January of 2021, I think we had the lowest rates that we've ever had.
But for them to get the real estate market really pumping again, if we have a recession, wouldn't they have to bring it down to even more historically?
Something's got to give.
What do we think they could go down to? Even because I definitely think it.
Some countries did negative rates. We didn't.
Yeah.
We went all the way to 0. So that's what it went down to 2.75. But if we go to negative rates, or
to really get it moving,
we could be at 1. There could be a 1 there.
I think we're going to have to see some more pain in the marketplace in order for that to happen, or something kind of cataclysmic.
Oh, people are screaming right now. It's like tariffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's all the tariffs' fault.
Talking about tariffs, they're on the consumer's radar in a big way. When asked how concerned are you about tariffs or trade policies making housing more expensive, 44% said they're very concerned. 34% said they're somewhat concerned. So in total, that's 78% of those polled do believe that tariffs will make housing more expensive. It's pretty alarming.
Well, it will.
It will.
Like
right?
there's another that
construction and all the
Nails,
things.
Right. Those are two of the big things, right? Tariffs, especially. I believe we get a ton of nails from China, and that whole steel. And again, that's one of the last holdouts, as we know. And so, yeah, that
China makes all the nails, huh?
I believe so. They're a huge nail distributor.
Oh.
Huge nail distributor.
Why I know that I don't know.
Piles and
I'm trying to
piles
search back in my. I think I actually have a friend that's in the steel nail business, and when it happened last time, and that is exactly where it came from. Sorry, I had to go back in my memory bank. I remember.
I know they made all the masks. Remember back in COVID, we had to buy a bunch of masks from China.
So how does this translate into what buyers and sellers are potentially doing with real estate and their plans? And when asked what describes your real estate plans for the next 12 months, staying put is the dominant plan. So 46% said that they plan to stay put. 18% do intend to buy a home.
Cool.
17% said they plan to rent. 12% were undecided, and 7% said that they're going to sell.
Wow.
Awesome. Sounds like you guys got your job. Go find the 7%.
That tracks, if you look at the 7%, that kind of tracks with turnover rates. It's a little bit higher than turnover rates. So some of these folks probably won't end up selling. But interesting, though, that everyone's just kind of hunkering down, waiting to see what happens and taking that I'll do it later approach.
Well, that tells me that everything's just going to keep going up, I guess. Because usually when there's nothing that happens, it continued. The status quo, it just continues.
Well, and it's like the spring just keeps compressing to when it finally happens. Bing! Right? Like we all saw that happen massive years ago.
Can you do that noise again?
Bing! On replay. Don't worry, Chris is going to catch that.
And so Redfin came out and said that the typical home seller wants $39,000 more than the typical buyer is willing to pay. And so we know that sellers still kind of have this pie in the sky pricing. Keith is nodding. Talk to us about that, Keith, because that obviously hit home for you.
Well, what we're dealing with is there's always a lag time, right? People living in the past, they go back the last couple of years and like, oh, I saw it sell for this. I saw it sell for that. And we probably all have this own sentiment. If we were going to put our house on the market, we think our house is better and nicer than
sell for more,
than everyone else is out there. Unless, of course, right, there's another house that's obviously nicer than yours. But that's usually the mindset that most sellers have. And so, they just usually want too much. We're seeing, especially with properties that are being acquired, they are expecting a particular price. The inspection report comes back, kind of reveals usually a different picture than that was painted up front. And once those things are able to be put in front of them, so to speak, usually there's a little bit of reality that sets in, and a lot of them become a little bit more realistic. But I think they have to get to that point. So, but I'm sure that stat is probably pretty right on the money.
But if interest rates were at 2.75-3%, they could get that price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And exactly your point, they saw that back when interest rates were that low, and they think, oh well, I can get it today, but it's not the case.
Well, it's like that trade trying to be done where they time the bottom perfect or time the top, right? To enter, I'm going to sell off at the top or I'm going to buy at the bottom. Good luck on finding that, right? Because there is such a small window of time when rates drop and prices are still low, because as you just pointed out, when rates usually drop, prices usually start to tick up because the demand goes way up, right? So again, it's that impossibility of trying to enter in at the right time. At the end of the day, if you're planning on buying your house and you're not going to sell it within the next 5 years, it's still a great idea to buy. Like, to me, always has been, always will be.
Well, we talked yesterday a little bit about what's happening in the crypto world, specifically Bitcoin, with the company 21 that's recently been founded, which is solely exists to purchase Bitcoin, similar to a strategy by Michael Saylor. And we see the shift in wealth going to Bitcoin. And one of the things that I was thinking about last night is, because Jason had mentioned yesterday that what he thinks is going to happen is he thinks that people who own 20, 30, 40, $50 million homes are maybe going to start selling those, maybe taking some of that money and putting it into Bitcoin instead. And what I think could happen is we could have a lot of Gen Z who, let's be real, they're struggling in the housing market to afford a home. Yeah. But what we do know is there are a lot of Gen Z that they own crypto, they own Bitcoin. And so what we could see happen is we could see some of these, these really wealthy individuals sell off their very expensive real estate. And then as a result, maybe these Gen Z who have a lot of crypto can then enter the housing market because now they're going to have a lot of Bitcoin. And maybe they leverage it, maybe they keep it, or maybe they sell it, one of the two. But we could see a shift and a re-entry by Gen Z because of the wealthy individuals selling off their real estate and buying crypto, increasing the prices of things like Bitcoin, and then giving them that purchasing power in the market that they need. And so again, we go back to, we've talked about this a few times, it's going to be fascinating to see what companies emerge that allow you to leverage your Bitcoin to purchase things like real estate or whatever you want, right? And so there was a company that we were just checking out. I know that you were researching it, Jason. Can you share a little bit about how you can leverage your Bitcoin?
Well, it's called Ledin.io, and it's a Bitcoin lender. So you're able to
Ledin,
yeah, LEDN.io. A lot of the crypto influencers I follow, they do sponsors with them. But yeah, you can give up, like, say you give them 5 Bitcoin, they'll give you a loan in dollars, about half the amount. It's basically 50%, and then you have 12 months to basically pay it off, and it's like 10-11% interest. So you can still keep your Bitcoin. Obviously, right. They're custodying it for you. But then you can leverage it. You can leverage buy something what you want to buy, or invest with it, and then pay it off after 12 months, and you get your Bitcoin back. And if your Bitcoin's gone up, you get all that equity, you get all that appreciation in your Bitcoin. So pretty cool.
Especially if you're smart, the cash that you take, you're buying another asset that's also going to potentially appreciate.
Absolutely,
so again, just another smarter play on leverage, that whole thing. But I'm with you. This is such an interesting space, and who knows who's gonna crack the code first, but like around leveraging, trading, bartering, right?
I think it's gonna be the big banks. It's gonna be your Bank of America's, your Wells Fargo's, the bigger banks that they're gonna start to enter this space, because now they're gonna be able to custody Bitcoin, and they're gonna leverage it.
Well, I think kind of that what's frustrating for me is if you go to get an asset-backed loan, if you had let's say you had $2 million in Bitcoin, essentially you're not gonna be able to use that to get an asset-backed loan. But if you had that $2 million in Tesla stock or Apple, you'd be able to leverage that to get a loan. And so I think that that's something that needs to change in the lending space, which probably will.
It is. It's happening.
Will. But how soon do you think?
Probably within the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah, it's already happening. I think they're building the infrastructure, and you're going to start to see it here very shortly.
Yeah, well, B of A came out and said that I'm forgetting what it is, and maybe you guys remember it better, but essentially where, hey, we're ready to jump in and custody your Bitcoin. Just give us the word, right? The CEO remind me who that whole statement when there was someone saying, yeah. Yep. But anyway, you're right. They're ready to jump in, and again, it's still just funny, right? Like when we talked about yesterday, where to me these printing presses it's very clear that they're going to have to infuse a bunch of liquidity back into the market for these rates to make things more affordable, right? They've kind of figured out how to solve these things, which is why the printing press and the trillions of dollars of debt, right? That's getting pumped into the system, is it does create liquidity, and it does give us temporary relief. However, the issue with it is it devalues the currency that we do have, right? It stretches that dollar farther and makes it so, that dollar doesn't buy as much today as it did 5 days ago.
So it turns out realtors are getting spam called by real estate brokers. So there was a poll done of real estate agents, and nearly 85% of the agents said that they field multiple inquiries from real estate brokers. 16% of those calls are coming as frequently as once a week.
Wow. From like recruiters, like downlines?
Yeah, like brokers, brokers out there recruiting,
agents,
team leaders.
All agents can now recruit. So now instead of calling consumers trying to get a listing, they're calling agents trying to get an agent so they can get a listing.
Sell the salesperson.
They can make some money off of your listing.
They think that's easier. It's really not.
I actually think it's a harder sell.
It's a long-term nurture. I know that back when I was recruiting, it would take, oftentimes you would nurture a relationship with an agent for months and months.
Makes sense to me.
It was not something that just happened overnight. I mean, obviously, most agents aren't willing to like pack up their business and head to another brokerage tomorrow.
The agents that you would want, right?
Right.
Certainly shouldn't be ready to do that. It's painful. Like I moved a couple of times. Keith, right there with me, we moved a couple of times, and every time you move, it's ridiculously expensive. It's massively disruptive, and there better be a darn good reason for it.
Well, that just even if you aren't physically going to move, just the rebranding takes.
Yep.
That's probably the toughest part.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I think though that I think the agents love to do that new posts on social media about like, oh, I've joined this or I've joined that. And the recent one that I see here locally in the Phoenix area is Sirhant. So Ryan Sirhant must have opened a brokerage here in Phoenix. I'm seeing like, I'm seeing agents that are moving. They're all excited. Like Ryan Sirhant flew into town and they all took pictures with them.
Bunch of agent whores.
Some of these agents don't move often.
Oh, let's take
like,
a photo with Ryan.
I'm with Sirhant.
I'm with Sirhant now.
So
Look,
excited.
I'm my buddy. Woo.
Our inspiring leader.
Yes, but then they are still there doing the same.
Yeah, I hate to say it, and I'm sorry, this might be controversial for some of you guys out there, but at the end of the day, you are the common denominator.
Yep.
Right? I don't think there's anything else to say where you're going to get what you've got unless you get systematic about your business plan.
Nothing changes until something changes.
I will say, though, Compass and the recent shenanigans going on there, whether you agree with what they're doing or don't agree with it, what is happening is they are having agents leave because of all of the controversy and whatnot that's going on. Yeah, so they've lost some agent count. They're also obviously losing listings because of that agent count. And I find it really interesting because, see, previously, I know that this adds, I actually appreciate their CEO, Arefkin, coming out and taking a stand for what he believes in. Although it's costing him some agents, costing them some listings. Obviously, they just filed that class action lawsuit against the Northwest MLS.
Yeah, Seattle.
Yeah,
area.
yeah. Yep. And so, they're embroiled in a lot of controversy right now. Prior to that, though, I thought Compass was such a sexy brand. It was like, and it seemed to attract like a lot of the top talent, a lot of the great realtors.
It has a very classy feel to it.
It does. It feels very upscale. So how will this pan out for Compass? It'll be really interesting to see. And of course, we have more brokerages joining in on the fight. So recently, West USA, based out of Phoenix, came out in support of Zillow's policy. And so now, you have more.
They're supporting Zillow?
Yeah, they're supporting Zillow's policy of, hey, basically all of the listings. I mean, think about it. If you're, unless you're one of the really big guys, how can you compete against, against it, right? Like, and if you're an indie broker,
bend the knee.
how could you ever compete against?
You can't.
If Compass takes a stand and then everyone started doing what Compass was doing and all of the listings were fragmented, it would be really difficult to compete unless you were that big brokerage.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? Because I mean, part of for me, like being a capitalist and an entrepreneur at my core, like you want to have like these free markets, and that's all these massive brands have done is they've just absolutely crushed it. And now it's to the point of where they can dominate and lean on you, which is that capitalistic play. At the same time, then the other party is like, dang, is this unfair? Right. So it definitely splits your brain and splits your thinking on what is the proper approach so that it's, fair and clear cooperation, right? Which is what a lot of this, I think, or some of it, and obviously the MLS off the market, on the market, right? And what's the term? Why am I drawing a blank on it? But I know you know.
Clear cooperation.
Okay,
CCP?
so I was right. It's just, again, what I don't like, though, is where they're trying to force homeowners that if you're not going to put your house on the market, you can't advertise on my platform. Which, again, I get it. It's a private platform, and they can set their policies, their guidelines, et cetera. It's very interesting.
Is it private though? I mean, Zillow's publicly traded.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, they're in the sense like Facebook, it's to determine what they want to do because it's their platform, right? So same thing with all of the social media, which is why they're not quite governed the same as like a true government entity.
But will the DOJ put the smack down? That is the question.
That is the question.
The fire's probably coming, right? Like at the end of the day, it's for the reasons that we just said. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Stay tuned.